All right, I guess we're all here.
Yeah, I'll get the dog out of here. Got it.
I have to, my public duty in these meetings is to read a public message first, so if you guys can put up with it, thank you. And I gotta read it in the blind. It's really small print. Consistent with the governor's orders. First off, let me start, but this is a sign review meeting, basically, with the design review committee for 1099 Main Street. So let me finish here. Let me start this again. Consistent with the governor's orders extending certain provisions of the open meeting law, every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to meetings in real time. If you do not have a camera or a microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8591, meeting ID 891-5690-0061, passcode 708079. Please use only the dial-in or the computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and visually recorded in compliance with the American Disability Act. This location is accessible to people with disability. Wakefield provides reasonable accommodations and/or language assistance free of charge upon request. If you are a person of disability and require information or material in any appropriate format, or if you require other accommodations, please contact the town disability coordinator, William Renault, town engineer, at 718-246-6308. As far as in advance as the event is possible, every effort will be made to grant you your request, and advance notice will enable the town to make reasonable accommodations to remove any accessibility barriers to you. This is zoning board. So zoning board, town. So we're here to talk about the signage proposed for the restaurant down there. And so I guess introductions are in order. And I'm not Gene, I'm Jim. I'm the chair of the design review committee. Jeff is here. He is a member of the design review committee. And since we're all volunteers, one other member who can't make it, I guess, is on night shift, so he's sleeping. We didn't ask him to put his pajamas on and show up at zoning board at this hearing, basically. Nor I think he would. I don't think he'd respect us if we did anyway. So Jack, you are?
Yeah, Ubacheski.
Okay, and you are, what's your role?
I'm the owner of Dockside Restaurant. I live in Wakefield the last 30 years, and I've owned that location for 18 years I've been there.
Your face looks familiar for some reason, Rella.
I've been around 30 years, so.
I haven't seen it at the post office like a wanted poster or something like that.
Maybe my wife you would see, not me. Right under the bus for her.
And John, we've been communicating back and forth. So with that, let me bring up, if I can, because make sure that I want to make sure that let's see, I'm not so good at this at times. So let me bring up what's on my screen. First off, let me see if I got it on my screen. I don't assume anybody can see that yet.
Nothing yet.
Yeah, I've got it up on my screen now. Now the thing is to get it up on everybody else's. Let's see, back to this.
Are you just trying to get the picture of the sign up there?
I've got a lot more, a little bit more than that.
Okay.
At this point. I don't know what the heck that is, but anyway, it's there. There.
Did you select share screen down at the bottom?
You know, I haven't. Now I got to get everybody back on the screen properly.
No, you can, don't worry about us, just share screen and select which screen you want to share.
I got you, Jeff, but I don't have anybody else.
You're not supposed to see us really, just if you select that green thing that just share screen, and it should give you all your windows and ask which one you want to share. I'll be right back, Jim. I'm just going to grab something. There you go.
There it is.
Yeah, they were just doing something with, putting some signs up there.
Okay.
All right, suppose you hear me now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sounds
Yeah.
like an ad now. Can you hear me now? So let me start over again, once again. In 2010, signage regulations were revised in overlay districts and put under the control of the Design Review Board to review to make sure they comply with the current regulations in those areas. We recommend or deny recommendation to the building inspector. We don't issue, we can't approve. All we can do is basically write a memo to the building commissioner saying that we approve this particular applicant for a permit, or we say there are some issues and they're going to have to go to the zoning board. So what we have here is we have some signs that are do not comply with the current overlay regulations. But in some cases, basically, you can go to the zoning board and have those regulations overwritten by them. So what I'm going to try to do is explain to you what you should be chasing for those, because we can't grant you what you've wanted right now. So, but at the same time, we can suggest how you can be in compliance. There are some regulations that were put out there that in a lot of cases where you've got a large business is that the signs are too small for. The signs are 15 square feet. That's all you're allowed. And that might be fine for a 20-foot storefront down in the middle of Wakefield, but it's not so great for some other businesses basically which have more square footage. I should tell you that before COVID, I and Steve Mayo and a bunch of others, businesses basically rewriting the bylaw or adding to the bylaw to add more flexibility and to allow basically where you wouldn't have to go to the zoning board of appeals to overwrite something, you could actually go to this committee. That at this point is still not restarted. We spent 2.5 years. I'm hoping to see it restarted so we can finish it basically. So what you got right now, and I'll flip through these since you probably know them pretty well. We all know them pretty well, quite frankly. So you've got an entry that's on the first photo. You've got an entry that's on the parking lot. Instead of being on the main street, it's on the side. You've got a sign on the side of the dining area out towards the street. No signs at the front of the building, but a sign pointing north and another one pointing south. No signs except for the banner signs in the windows here. Sign basically that is really on the parking lot for the abutter next door. And then you've got what's proposed here, which is to replace the sign over the doorway, over the windowway on the street. There is, I've got a size later for this, but there's no information on the lettering size, and I'll tell you that's important in a minute. Then you've got replacing the one basically pointing south, which is in the abutters driveway or parking area. This brings us down to this. The size of the signs are 30 by 24 and 30 by 128. They're 50 square feet and 27 square feet. They cannot be that large. They are allowed to be 15 square feet with immediate approval through the board, basically, once we tell them that they're 15 square feet. For this business, I don't see that as an appropriate size, but we'll get to that for a minute. There's no information on the lettering size in case of each sign. And the letters just seem to be stick-on as opposed to some sort of raised lettering. The other one is that the lighting is internal and it's LED. So what you'll see below here are the regulations, basically. Prohibited signs. Prohibited signs are internally lit signs. This would be an internally lit sign. The box signs are not allowed. So you got two items basically against you. And as you note before, basically, in some cases, you can get a special permit to do other than what's required in 19 and 20. But it says clearly that no special permit can be allowed. So it means that the zoning board cannot grant you permission, basically, in this case, to have these two types of signs, internally lit and a box sign. So you got to do something of a more traditional sign, and you'd have to do some sort of exterior lighting, such as a gooseneck or something like that that you see downtown and other areas. You see below in table 1, 15 square feet. Letters are 14 square feet maximum, one sign per building. The intent of this is that these signs are on the front of the building towards the street, not on the side. But this is not under restriction other than the fact that it says one sign and the letters be 14 and 15. You can go for all of those items with the zoning board. You're just going to have to come up with a different sign and a size that might be more palatable, or even a design that might be more palatable, basically with raised letters and a gooseneck light or some lighting. And maybe you're 25 square feet or something, or maybe you're 20 square feet. The other thing you're going to have to ask for is the freedom to put the signs on the side. Now, I suspect one of the things in the new future code would be that a sign would be allowed on the side of the building that has the parking lot. It's not allowed now, but we have been granting things that we know are coming along in the future, and we have done it for our own personal reasoning so that we can show people in the future the new code will allow people to do this. We work very closely with Hart's Hardware, basically to get them basically better conditions than they would have had under the old code, but mimic basically the new code. Like I say, it's not written, it's not really out yet, but we know what it's gonna, we know pretty much what it's gonna be. So you have an opportunity to basically ask the board, ask the zoning board basically to change some of the regulations in your favor. So with that, I'm open to questions or comments from, well, let me start with comments from Jeff first.
Okay, can I go?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I've been at 18 years. Before I was there, the Long family had it for 30 years. I've decided to go in a different direction to branding because coming out of the pandemic, business has not been what it should be. So I've gone through this process of bringing in the Ferramo's brand. I mean, I live in Wakefield 30 years, so obviously I want to conform to most of the rules that I can conform with up there. Business-wise, it's tough decisions to make. When I first looked at this, all I'm doing, in my eyes, I'm replacing the dockside, that old sign I had up there for 18 years, with the Ferramo sign. I mean, the size of the letters you probably don't have. But to me, it was a simple thing. All I'm doing is is replacing it. So I understand what you're saying. I understand these codes have been written. Every city and town are different to deal with. So I'm looking at this from a financial point and something I can do, quickly and get it done. I understand this, but I don't understand why, if I'm only replacing the name, I'm not looking to make it bigger. I'm not looking to put lights all over it that will shine all night. All I want to do is replace the sign in the building that I have. And that seems to be the obstacle. The way that it's been explained to me, the way I understand it, if I conform to these new rules and regulations, it's going to cost me some money. And that's what it's all coming down to. I think I've been a good citizen in the community. We raised a lot of money for different groups and organizations. I'm not looking for anything special. All I'm saying is I don't understand the basics, why I just can't change the name of my sign. And how does that not conform?
The problem is that the way they wrote this was, and how they were going to get rid of some of the old signs in town, were that as new businesses came to town, for instance, if Dockside was to stay there for the next 20 years, they would be allowed to keep their sign. They're grandfathered. You're not grandfathered. Therefore, you have to conform.
Okay, the Dockside is still there. It's still my same corporation. I'm just changing the DBA.
You're gonna end up having to argue this fact with the zoning board, not with me.
I'm not arguing it. I just don't understand it. It doesn't make a lot of common sense to me.
Well,
I'm not arguing. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, okay, we're discussing it.
If the town wants to be pro-business, and I'm just looking at this one example, this is not pro-business, just changing a name. You're making me conform to, and you're costing me money to do something that I shouldn't have to spend money on. Again, if I wanted to put bells and whistles on it and different lights and make it bigger, I'd conform to everything. But just changing the name, I just don't understand why. Now, obviously, as you said earlier, you don't have to say yes or no. It's going to go back to the building commissioner, and it's going to get rejected. At the end of the day, I'll go to this other hearing, and if they tell me no, I have the right to change the name of my business. I'll just keep the Dockside name up there. If this cost is not reasonable to me, why should I spend money that I shouldn't have to spend? Now, before, my memory was that the town got some grants from the state for signage. If those grants are available, I'm all for it.
They didn't get anything from this. Well,
A while back.
there was originally, the savings bank had money out there, all right? And I'm not sure, I'd have to talk to Mayo, and you can do it, of course, as well, as to whether there's signage from the state. I did hear there was money from the state, but I have not heard where the heck it's going, quite frankly, all right? When it was when a bank was putting it out, they were granting money with no strings attached, and then a low interest loan after that. And I don't think they were granting any more than $1,000 maximum, basically, for sign. But as to whether there's other sources out there, it hasn't come my way to tell me that there is. And I understand where you're coming from, all right? And I cannot, nor can Jeff, make a decision basically on this, because in all intents, basically, because the business has changed, and you can make the argument, I'm still the same owner, I've just changed my name, but we can't make that for you. You have to make it for yourself, and you're going to have to make it before the zoning board.
Okay, then that's what I'll do. Go before the board. And in the meantime, I don't even have the exact number, because what you'd want me to do would cost me a lot more money. So I don't know what that money would be and where I get it from. But so that's what I understand.
I mean,
I pay enough in taxes that
we're just poor little volunteers.
No, I know you're only volunteering, but I'm trying to make a living and keep people employed. Since I changed the Farmer concept, we hired 20 more employees.
Well, that's good.
That's good, and it's cost me a lot more money.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, as the guy that owns the business, how much do I want to stop spending? Again, if I was to make drastic changes to that sign, I should be 100% obligated to follow all the codes and regulations. I just want to change the name. That's all I want to do. So I think it's unreasonable, not for you, but I think it's unreasonable for a business that wants to just change its name can't put a sign back up there. We're dictated by the government as to how we have to put our sign for our business. And I'm just replacing the name. So I understand it, and I'll wait till I go to the hearing, and if they tell me no, I mean, I'm not being a wise guy about it, I'll just say, okay, I live dockside up there. Internally, it's still Paramus. It's gonna be a Paramus menu, Paramus business.
Yeah.
I go before the liquor board on the 28th, I think, for the ZBA change, which is only it's a rubber stamp thing. I've done this in the past. So I'm still the owner, I still have the same corporation, so it's a DBA, it's just a change of business name, so I shouldn't have a major issue with that. I don't think there's any new regulations for that.
Well, the other way, I suppose, is for me, as chairman of this board, to talk to town council. And I'm not talking about the 7 people that sit on the board, but the guy that's the lawyer. And have him interpret this for me and let him know, basically, or ask him, basically, is this legitimate request on our part or not, or requirement by the regulation? And if it is or isn't, basically, then I can respond, or we can respond appropriately. But what we've been doing is anytime a business rotates, basically, is they've got to come to compliance.
Well, Jim, just to clarify, it has nothing to
Yeah.
do with who owns the business or anything. It's whether the sign is renovated or reconstructed. So otherwise you just have a perpetual non-conforming sign with no incentive to ever conform to what everybody else is being required to do. So I mean, that's 190-75.
Yeah, I now that you mentioned, I
So
remember what
you
it
couldn't
is.
even go out and get a new dockside, illuminated piece and put it back in if it started to fade. So, I didn't write the law, I didn't write the bylaw, but there is a logic to it. I'm not here to debate anything. It's not I can't change anything. But, everybody else has to conform to it, and which is the reason for these bylaws. So,
Yeah, it says clearly that if the graphics, basically the design changes, that it has to become.
Well, let me ask you this then, with that said, and I understand it 100%, believe me, I live in Wakefield, I wouldn't want to see 30,000 different signs or big signs or that stuff. What type of sign would conform to the bylaws now? If you gave that to me, then I could say, okay, what's this gonna cost me? It comes down to dollars and cents, that's what it's coming down to.
Well, like I said, you've got several problems, basically, but the sign itself can't be backlit. It has to be 15 square feet maximum. So it would be let's point to the one across the signs across the street from you. Those storefront signs across the street from you are 15 square feet with raised letters. They don't have to be raised letters, but they are raised letters, and they're at least no greater than 14 inches high. Is that big enough for you? Then, that's legal. But it's not going to be big enough for you. The other thing is the other tripwire.
What was that again, 15?
15 square feet
15 square feet?
and 14. Let me see if I'll show you right here.
Where's that one?
And 15 square feet, one
Yeah.
sign, one wall sign, 15 square feet, 14-inch high letters.
Okay. 15 square feet, 14 inches. Could I have one on each side of the building like I have now, or I can only have one?
You can only have one, and the problem becomes one in which it's supposed to be on the front of the building on the street side.
Well, that would be a challenge because who sees it if it's right in front of you versus on the side of the building? I understand that. I'm trying to think in my head how it works. And a sign 15 square feet in the front of that big building is gonna really get lost when you think of it.
No, I totally agree. That's why I think you really need to go to the board,
Okay,
basically get something bigger. The other thing while we're here, I will mention,
Yeah.
is you can have a projecting bracket sign of not, what is it, 9 square feet, I think it is. I might be wrong. That hangs off the building, so traffic coming from either direction can see it.
what's that called?
Projecting bracket sign. You see them downtown and, well, let's take, for instance, the Arts Center on Albion Street,
Yeah,
or the model shop at the end of Albion Street. They all have projecting bracket signs. The one on the Arts Center is bigger than is allowed, but that went through the zoning board and this board recommended it. The zoning board approved it. So they had a nice big sign, so people traveling up Albion Street, and you've got a better situation than those people do, which is a very narrow street going up there. So they went to the board with a good design, a large sign, basically, so people coming up the street, both pedestrian and traffic, can see it. But yes, you have a problem without doing something that either getting a sign approved on the side of the building or providing for a bracket sign that's big enough to really show the business.
Hart's Hardware recently changed their signs.
Not yet. They were going to, but Lenny basically got into financial circumstance where every number he was getting from people, because he was going to reface his whole building. So he had a whole new design with a refacing and all new signage, basically. So if you know, not Lenny, his son, basically. Anyway, they basically held back because when they talked to contractors about the bigger picture, which was refacing the building plus signage, they're holding off for a year at this point, but they got approval.
Okay,
I would think that the ZBA might be pretty amenable to a sign on your parking lot side, because the rationale for the sign on the street sort of presupposes that there's an entry on that street. I think you could make a pretty good argument that you'd like to put a new sign or address the sign that's above the windows on your parking lot side, because that's the entry side of the building.
right.
I don't know, I can't speak for them. I don't know how supportive they'd be of a new sign on the abutters property. But I think Jim's suggestion that the bracket sign, which hangs off the building and would be seen in both directions coming up and down Main Street, is a potential solution for a sign on the
I
street.
don't even know what a bracket sign means.
Well, it's a bracket upon which a sign hangs. You know, they swing back and forth in the wind. You know, it's hung by a bracket.
Jack, we actually call them blade signs also.
Well, blade
work.
signs,
Blades
Well,
tend to be
look at
affixed, right?
What's that?
blade signs are fixed elements, like a blade sticking on the building. A bracket sign is something that hangs off an ornamental piece of iron, basically off the face of the building.
Is it overhanging the sidewalk?
Yes,
Yeah, you've got a decorative bracket that points perpendicularly off the building, and a sign a two-sided sign hangs from it, whether it's by chains or a couple swivels or whatever. And
It
Okay.
can be backlit.
Somewhere.
they usually are, they have.
nothing can be back. It's not a box sign. It's, you know, the Hartshorn House has one hanging off it. It's 2 inch.
Oh, so it would just have like the name. Is that what it is? But it's not lit, just the name, like I could have this bracket sign saying Ferramos.
Right. People have logos on them. And,
Okay, then how do I light that? With those goosenecks?
Yes,
You have to light a sign, right?
Well, there are options other than goosenecks, but it amounts to a couple fixtures pointing at the sign from each side. You could
They can
have,
be
you know, they have small LEDs that you can.
Okay, so I'm trying to visualize now. So who has in Wakefield I can drive around tomorrow and take a look?
Go and look at on Albion Street. There are two between Main and North Ave. I think there might even be three. There's one at the Cultural Center, which is the old electric light building.
Okay, yeah, right at the corner.
Right. And then up the street, basically near the other end, is where the old hobby shop used to be.
Yeah,
All right, there's a sign up, there's a hung sign there.
okay,
And there's another one that's off the back end of the old CVS building on the side street.
is that what CS ventilation used to be?
I don't know who's there, but it's across from the rear entrance for Alano's. You know where the rear entrance of Alano's is in the parking lot there?
Yes, yeah,
All right, right across there, on the opposite side of the street is what was used to be the old CVS building. There's a storage facility in the basement there for people to keep their papers and stuff like that.
okay,
There's a hanging sign there, something Lion Storage or something like that. There's one
Okay.
there as well.
Okay.
And if you'd like, I can send John a bunch of images that have been processed as well, if you like.
I'm taking away, I mean, obviously, I have to get a sign, I want to conform, but money's an issue. Those are the three things, pretty simple. In my, again, earlier, as I said, in my mind, I'm just putting one name up, taking the one name down. I understand there's more to it than that, but that's how simple I thought it was.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but it's not quite that simple.
No, but I have business in like 7 different cities and towns, and everybody's different. There's no uniform policy.
That's right. There isn't. It's not like a building. It's not like a building code, which is statewide. This is
Well,
townwide.
you get, even putting tents up outside, everybody had different rules and regulations for it, different policies. It was
Right.
crazy.
If you went to Newburyport, they'd have huge regulations that are based on historic nature, basically. So
I
in
get
some
it.
way, in some ways, that's what this group, when they originally wrote this, were thinking, basically, to give it a more towny nature, basically, than, having all these big signs.
Let me go through the process of it. So I guess the next thing is going to the zoning board, but in the meantime, I'll work on this other stuff. I'll look at the numbers and I'll decide. But at the end of the day, so I'm clear, if I decide I'm going to change the name of my business legally, but if I say I want to keep the dockside sign up there, I can do that, correct?
Yep, you can.
Okay.
The only complication, I don't know if you're going to have any temporary banners that announce.
No banners. No.
Well, is there anything on the side of the building now? Are there a couple affixed temporary?
They were put up by a liquor company, they were taken right down. They're not, there's no banners up there.
I thought there was one that said Floramo's new menu, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was taken down.
Oh,
That's down. I'm not, they was put up, but when I seen it, I had taken it down. No, there's no banners.
well, what I was gonna say is that the Board of Selectmen, you can go to the Board of Selectmen and for 30 days have a temporary sign.
I'm gonna go to the board, I think, well, I go, like I said, it's 28th.
He doesn't have to go to the Board of Selectmen. He can automatically do a 10 square foot sign, I think it is, or 6 square foot sign. He can put on any one of his windows or on the building for 90 days, I think it is. I would suggest this,
Wow.
since you're just getting a handle on what's involved, that before you start jumping at the board and going to the zoning board, that you come back to us with what you think you want to do. And we can basically direct you, maybe help you a bit on this end to make it a little bit smoother. If you want to just, keep what you've got, your grandfather, there's nothing we're going to do about it. Nobody can do anything about it at this
Right.
point. So but on the other hand, if you want to do something, you're probably gonna end up basically, unless I think you'll end up with the zoning board anyway, but we can maybe help guide you a bit or let you know what sections you have to go after or something like that. In fact, any letter that we write will have the sections you'll have to chase, depending on what you present to us. And I'm not going to assume at this moment, and I think Jeff would concur, that your submission is just a process at this point. Here's what we're doing. And we've had these conversations before with other groups where they submit to us something to have a conversation about the design and the issues that are coming up ahead of time before formally submitting it to us. So we can help you as much as possible. It's part of our role basically is to help people with signs basically at the same time, hopefully get a better sign out of it, but meet the regulations at the same time. So I would just suggest to hang out there in that area for the moment, go and do your due diligence as to cost and other things. Now you have a little more information. If John or yourself want to contact me by email and ask me some questions, I can certainly give you answers to what I know or give you sections of restrictions or whatever they might be. So, and tell you what you can and can't do. Like I say, there are a few things that even the zoning board cannot do for you. On the other hand, the zoning board can give you special permits on sizing, on a projecting bracket sign, and I will send John basically some examples of that have been approved in this town of projecting bracket signs. I will even send you what Hearts is proposed to do, so you get an idea to understand what Hearts is doing.
Okay. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I know you volunteer for this, so you're taking your time out of your day to help. And I'm up for it. I live here, so I'm up for it. It's the timing of everything.
Well,
I'll say too that the letter, even when we, have to deny something, if we're in favor of it, Jim usually writes a letter that says, although it's under the regulations, it has to be denied. The applicant is looking for such and such, and the board, in working with them, has, determined that this wouldn't be detrimental, or we can offer support for the whichever of the most important elements is that we think are, and we think would be good for everybody. If it's, the sign on the parking side staying where it is, that sort of thing, or being bigger, we can say, if we can't permit it under the zoning now, but under the regulations now, but we would emphasize to the ZBA that we're in support of it.
Well, that would mean something, obviously, so thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why Jim's saying, it might be worthwhile coming up with a couple design options and figuring out what's manageable, what's doable, and running it by this board again, and then we can write a letter of support and technically deny things. The best example is the blade sign, the bracket sign. We can't allow them, but we can encourage them. And then when they go to the ZBA, I don't think any of them have been turned down because they've worked with us. We know what the signage bylaws going ahead are looking for, and we can say technically it's not available or allowed, but the ZBA can approve it. And,
So there are no more live meetings, right? All this Zoom stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I had to come to my daughter's house to get Zoom. First time I ever did it.
I think it was the first time Jim's ever done it too.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep coming back to this. Hey, gentlemen, if there's anything else, I appreciate your time. Valuable information. Again, in my mind, it was pretty simple. And whatever it is, we'll work to get it done the right way.
Right, good. Like Jeff says, if you're fully in compliance, I'd write a memo to the building department saying that we recommend granting this person a permit. If you're not in compliance, then what we would say is that you're not in compliance, but we understand that you're going to proceed to the zoning board to get approval from them. And then once it goes through the zoning board, then the building department would grant your permit. Meanwhile, we also will write a memo, like Jeff says, to the zoning board And if we think the design and the sizing is appropriate for the building and the business, we will put a positive word in, basically, for the business to make sure that they vote in a positive manner as well. At least give them the opportunity to vote in a positive manner.
Is the zoning board a live meeting or we have to do Zoom again?
Zoom again.
This
Well,
is torture.
someday, yeah, someday. Well, you know, in the middle of the winter, when you've got to go to a zoning board meeting that starts at 7 and ends at 12 o'clock, and it's snowing out, it's very convenient.
Yeah.
But the camaraderie of being in a public meeting is also missed as well. So someday we'll come back.
Okay. All right. Guys, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Let's work on making some adjustments here. They work for me financially and conform to the town. I'm all for it.
So, you know, just keep in contact, and we'll assume at this moment, this will be a continuation
Okay.
discussion. All right. With that, I'm going to close the meeting. I guess it's 5:18 at this point. So thank you for your coming and attending and listening to us. And we'll see you again in the future.
Get my daughter to shut this thing off. I don't know how. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
I think
All right, thank you.
See you all.